Cash One Pawn has the most extensive inventory of any pawn shop in western Montana. Whether you're in the market for firearms, power tools, bows, video game consoles, or sunglasses, Cash One Pawn is the best deals around. And now Cash One Pawn gives you the ability to shop online from anywhere. Make CashOnePawn.com part of your shopping habits. Also make sure to download the Cash One Pawn app. Cash One Pawn, Missoula's premier pawn shop, located on Roller Coaster Road on the way to the Y.
Meeting her stopped your world. The ring you give her should stop her heart.
Tina, will you marry me?
Not again! Don't worry, I'm gonna fix this because we want to be your jeweler on our beautiful diamond! Clear! Come back to me, Tina! Are you okay?
This breakdown, Skyline Sports MT.com, probably presented in part by Town Pump. Town Pump keeping us fueled up all season long. They're also proud to present our Skyline at 10. It's our 10th anniversary, and this is our top 10 football teams of the last 10 years. Anything else to add on Sacramento State of 2016 or 2022, until we move on to number 5?
No, I just think that they, with the recency of it, might be a forgotten team at this exact moment.
Yes.
Or weren't remembered the same way that they should be. They're definitely a really dominant team, and I think not in the top 5 for a reason, as I've said about several teams.
Yeah, I think that number 7, Montana State, 2019 version of the Cats. Number 6, Sacramento State, 2022 version of the Hornets. Those are two of the most – we were just doing most talented teams. Those are two of the most talented teams. But they each had a thing that held them back. For the Cats, it was stubbing their toe twice in the middle of the year and then getting run roughshod in the playoffs. And for Sac State, the quarterfinals is good, especially when you've never been there before. But if you want to be a true top 5 team, I think you just got to get one step farther than that. You got to get one step farther. Number 5 on our list, the 2014 Eastern Washington Eagles. This was our very first season working together. Seems like forever ago in a day. But in terms of regular season and early season games, that 52-51 game in Bozeman when Vernon Adams hit Cooper Kupp on a 2-point conversion to lift the Eagles, that was pretty good, man. In terms of I would pay money to watch this guy play, Vernon Adams is it, man. I think he's the number 1 on my list. I mean, Kupp is the best guarantee. It's the best investment. Like, you're just going to see 10 catches and 150 yards and 2 touchdowns with Kupp. But in terms of a guy who takes risks and stares down the gun barrel and makes throws through contact and wheeling and dealing and talking smack, Vernon Adams is as fun of a player as we've ever covered.
I love VA. You somehow love him more.
I do.
He's your guy.
He is my guy. I mean, that was one of the biggest scoops we ever broke when we broke that he was going to Oregon.
Yep, rightfully so. He's a dog. I mean, the receiving core is definitely, no question, the best receiving core of the Skyline era. Shaq Hill, Kendrick Bourne, and Cooper Kupp. I mean, Cooper Kupp and Kendrick Bourne combined are probably over 200 NFL games at this point. Cooper Kupp is one of the 25 greatest receivers of all time in NFL history, let alone one of the 2 or 3 greatest receivers in college football history. We always talk about Troy Anderson. I mean, Cooper Kupp's the GOAT. I don't know if that's really arguable if you talk about the full football.
Oh, he's one of the 10 best college football players ever.
But then again, he's got
he had 475 catches.
He
scored 80 touchdowns, dude.
Yeah, I saw him. And then the story.
25 touchdowns gets you in like your school's Hall of Fame.
Like 18. 15.
50 is unbelievable. He almost doubled that.
Yeah, like Montana State's all-time record is like 23.
Well, no, Cody Kirk has the all-time record.
No, receiving.
Oh, receiving. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Mitch Herbert had like 23 or something.
Yeah, Montana's is 29. Yeah, for sure.
If you know his story about him being 130 pounds and not playing tons as a freshman in high school and AC Davis, blah blah blah. Cooper Kupp is the GOAT. But those 3 guys, it's a next level, man. We're talking about something that it won't happen in the FCS again. So it's a time that's passed, and those 3 guys will never fall to the FCS, let alone at the same time.
Those guys hit their peak in 2016. More on that team after a little while. We keep foreshadowing of who's upcoming. Hopefully we're not spoiling it too much for you, but I think that at this point you probably have a fair assumption. Actually, probably the best Vernon Adams year was the year before, 2013. That doesn't fit our stipulations because Skyline Sports had not been launched yet. And then the year after, Vernon Adams was sort of a pioneer in terms of the grad transfer to the Power Five. This has become so commonplace now. But he was like the first guy.
Yeah, he really was.
And I remember it was like old school investigative journalism, right? We were waiting because Vernon Adams had to pass a math class to get his degree at Eastern Washington. Like waiting for him to take a summer school test. I told him, like, hey, man, call me or text me after you get done with this. And then he did. And, man, it's just so funny the way that the whole game has changed when it comes to, like, journalism and stuff.
It used to be fun.
Like, we used to go to the Big Sky kickoff. We'd hang out with these guys for a couple days. We'd play some golf. Like, I was Vernon Adams' personal chauffeur. Like, John Casper told me, like, hey, you got a good relationship with him. He needs rides places. Get him there. Get him to the golf course. Make sure he shows up, the next day to media. It was pretty fun and pretty cool to see. So this is a fun team, and it was interesting to see that they were able to bridge the gap after this. This team's record overall, 11-3. They were 7-1 in Big Sky Conference play. One of their 2 regular season losses was at the University of Washington, 59-52. So they took the Huskies all the way down the wire. Then their other regular season loss, 28-27 at Northern Arizona. Otherwise, though, big-time wins. They beat Montana twice, including ousting the Grizz in the playoffs. That was a good Montana team, even though they were probably down compared to where they had been a couple years earlier. Still a good Montana team with guys like Zach Wagaman and Taga Takai. That Grizz team had killed the Cats earlier in the year. They were one that we fringely considered maybe, but they went 9-5 that year, including losing twice to Eastern, so that's what kind of kept them off this list. Probably the biggest ding on this Eastern team is the fact that they lost to Illinois State in the playoffs, and I think that
it's a good team, though.
There's a really good team, and Marshawn Koprich, the quarterback, where the running back was awesome, and the quarterback was really good too. I think that was the first sort of moment when they started thinking about things differently. Eastern thought they were thinking, we're going to just score 55 on everybody, throw for 5 million yards, whatever. But then that was their first of what became several losses in a row to ground and pound Missouri Valley teams.
Yep.
And it influenced the way that they thought about a lot of stuff. SkylineSportsMT.com. More on this Big Sky Breakdown right after
Join
this.
Town Pump's Pump It Up Rewards Plus program and never pay full price for fuel again.
Save 5 cents on every gallon every day at any Town Pump across Montana.
Plus, earn and redeem points on your favorite in-store items to get free stuff with our clubs.
Stop in and pick up a rewards card. Download the Pump It Up Rewards Plus app today.
Or visit townpump.com/rewards to register and start saving.
Town Pump. Right down the road. Pump it up. Oh, yeah.
Our family on our mom's side has a deep Montana history, especially stemming from Butte and Helena. And we are so proud. One of the things we are most proud of is to call ourselves Montanans. At Up Top Clothing, they have Montana-made and Montana-branded clothing for both men and women. Their Montana Till I Die collection is one of my favorite collections anywhere in the clothing world. And you can shop online and get the Montana Till I Die collection and all the other great gear that Up Top Clothing makes delivered right to your doorstep. Visit teamuptop.com, and if you use the promo code SKYLINE15, you're going to get a discount on all your online ordering. Teamuptop.com, Up Top Clothing, reminding you to take a step back. Last thing on this 2014 Eastern Washington team, because I just don't really think that with the way football is going and has gone, that we're really ever going to see 56-35 over Sam Houston when Sam Houston was the number 1 team in the country. 41-9 over Montana Western. Hilarious they played Montana Western this year. 59-52 they lost at Washington. 52-51 the following week. A real slog of a game. 37-14 they won over UC Davis. Then they beat Idaho State 56-53. 42-35 to Southern Utah. Another slogger against Northern Colorado 26-18. Beat North Dakota 54-3. beat Montana 36-26, beat Portland State 56-34, beat Montana again 37-20, and then lost 59-46 in the playoffs. That's a lot of 40 and 50-point games.
It's hard. 56 is max. It's about as much as you can score.
Especially when you're throwing it all over the place and you get like big explosive touchdowns. So fun team, really memorable team.
5 players still starting in professional football. 5.
Yes, and
from 2014.
Many of these guys are coming up again in this list, so remember some of those facts. Big Sky Breakdown, Skyline Sports, MT.com, Skyline at 10. We'll keep it red. Eastern Washington, 2018 version of the Eagles, number 4. This team ahead of the one we just talked about for one simple reason, and that is they went all the way to the national championship. I think this team encompasses the thought that getting hot down the stretch is among the most important factors in the FCS. They were really good all year, but they were tremendously good down the stretch. This team, too, fascinating to see how something that should and could be detrimental to you actually was a benefit. Gage Gubrud was the starting quarterback of this team. A lot of people forget that. He busted his ankle against Montana State. It was that sequence when Troy Anderson, it was the one game where Jeff Choate said, Troy Anderson's our starting quarterback and we're also going to play him the entire time on defense. So it's the sequence where the Cats went for it on 4th down. They didn't get it. Troy stays on the field and then he gets a 3rd down sack of Gubrud and basically knocks him out of the game. The Cats still lost that game.
That's a common occurrence.
I used a quote from Aaron Best in our Troy Anderson opus that we wrote when Troy was going into the NFL. Aaron Best was like, is that real? Who does that? Who has ever done that? Who's ever done that? To play quarterback and then get a sack on 3rd down on the very next defensive series. But then that opened the door for Eric Berrier, and he sputtered at first. They rolled up against Southern Utah and won 55-17, but then got stuffed by Weber State, only scored 6 points and lost. Then they didn't lose again for 2 months until they got all the way to the national championship game. And Gubrud was never the same. Gubrud transferred. He grad transferred to Washington State, was never heard from again, which is pretty wild. This Eastern Washington team tied for the Big Sky title with Weber State and UC Davis. They then beat Davis in the playoffs, and so that was a nice little Big Sky crossover. Then they beat down Maine in the semifinals. That game was an absolute destruction, 50-19 in the semis. One of the bigger victories we've covered live and in person in the FCS playoffs. And they lost in the national championship game 38-24. Crazy that we've covered 3 of these live and in person. This was actually the best effort by one of the Big Sky teams.
By a mile.
I mean, the Cats were down 28-0 to North Dakota State. Tommy Mellott got his leg ripped off, and they really never had a chance. They lost that game 38-10. Last year, the Grizz were kind of in it for. I mean, they were in it for like the first quarter and a half, and then
scored 3 points.
They scored 3 points. So, yeah, like Eastern had some moments, and
you said 38-28.
38-24.
38-24. There was a moment where they were down like 9.
I think they were down. Yeah, I think that's right. I think they were down 31-21.
Right, and then they went down. I believe kicked a field goal there to get
they had
24,
to settle
and then
for a field goal and then
gave up 2.
Yeah,
but like
yeah.
I thought that they were. There was a moment in the middle of the 4th quarter was like they have a chance right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
This Eastern team, of course, the primary character was the emergence of Eric Berrier, but they also had receivers like Simba Webster, Talolulimu Jones, Andrew Boston. Sam McPherson was a great running back. They actually had 3 really good running backs: McPherson, Tamarack Pierce, and Antoine Custer. Tristan Taylor was an NFL-type offensive lineman.
So was Spencer Blackburn.
Aaron Neely was also on this team, I think, and he also got a shot in the NFL. Spencer Blackburn also got a chance in the NFL. Jace Gilder was a Montana guy. Corvallis, Montana was their tight end. And defensively, they had at least solid guys. Like, I mean, JT Tululi was great.
Wasn't he out?
He got suspended.
Yeah, because he punched somebody.
He got a fight with his brother.
Broke his face up.
At the Zips.
Ugh.
He got suspended.
Oh, I love Zips.
Me too.
God, I could use that right now.
I know. I always think of that when I go to Zip.
In Coeur d'Alene,
They got them in Spokane. And I don't know how they're not other places.
They're awesome.
It's delicious. It's
little,
cheap.
It's a little yellow banner.
When we were coming
awning.
back, when we were coming back from the Big Sky kickoff, I had Sammy Kim, Blake Hempstead, and Andrew Houghton.
You gotta get Zips.
I was like, "You guys want to get some dinner?" And they're like, "Well, we don't need to go to somewhere fancy." I was like, "I got a spot." So we go to Zips. They're like, "This place is unreal."
Yeah, it's awesome.
We got fed all four of us for like $40. It was amazing.
I ate there last summer. It was great.
Yeah. Anyways, defensive main characters: Kentner Cup, Cooper's little brother, Jack Sendelbach, Chris Oho, who ended up transferring. He was a really good player.
He's a good player.
Mitch Johnson was a defensive lineman, and JT Tallulah was the Big Sky Conference Defensive Player of the Year.
Kalen Kreiner was
that
the first
year.
team All-League guy.
Yep.
Second team.
Yeah, he was their number 4. They have their legacy number,
Yep.
number 4. It usually goes to their safety.
5'10", 185-pound bangers.
Yep. Guys like Mitch Fettig and Zach Bruce have worn that number. Matt Johnson wore that number before he was a draft pick. Here's a great statistic. I picked this one out. This team has the Big Sky Conference all-time record for first downs via pass. They threw for first downs 250 times, 252 times to be exact.
Wow.
They also rushed, though, for almost 4,000 yards. This is where Aaron Best, first of all, this was his best team for sure. And this is where you can see his philosophies as an offensive lineman and an offensive line coach filter into the strategy, filter into the way that they wanted to do things, because Barrier was dynamite. But this team ran a lot of RPO. They ran the ball up the middle quite a bit. And I mean, when you're rushing for 250 yards plus per game as a pass-first team, you're pretty much impossible to stop.
I want to know. So they scored 650 points.
Yeah, that's the Big Sky all-time record.
I want to know how many teams. This is like, we're talking margins here of like 1 touchdown and maybe 25 or 30 yards. But how many teams go 4,000 rushing, 4,000 passing, 40 touchdowns each?
Nobody.
4,000 rushing and 40 touchdowns, 4,000 passing and 40 touchdowns.
Yeah, nobody.
What is that? What is that stat?
That's crazy, right?
It's crazy.
So they scored 70 against Cal Poly, 55 against Southern Utah, 58 against Central Washington, 48 against Northern Colorado, 59 against UC Davis, 74 against Portland State, 42 against Nichols in the playoffs, 39 against UC Davis in the playoffs, 50 against Maine in the semifinals, and then 24 against the North Dakota State team that had given up about 2 points before that.
Yeah.
So
what a team.
Pretty prolific offense.
I love defensive football. I'm always pushing it back against people who are arguing for, against bad offense, or they don't love defense, or whatever it is. I'm not going to lie. I kind of miss that. I would really like to see a team score 70 in person. That would be great. Let it rip.
Here's the best analogy. Here's the best analogy you could possibly say. College football in the late 2000s into the late 2010s was a tennis match. How many times can you break serve and how many times can you return serve?
Sure.
How many times can you make it your serve? You're going to give up 4 scores. They're going to give up 4 scores. How are you going to take advantage of the other possessions? Now, college football, unfortunately, has become a game of keep away.
Yeah.
There's way less plays. The clock runs constantly. I think the common fan is so busy yelling, partying, and either rooting for their favorite team or rooting against their least favorite team that they haven't noticed it as much as they should. Like the sport has been redefined to be packaged into a perfect 3-hour window so they can show it on TV.
It goes a lot longer than that when I've been going.
It just seems like that because you've been covering 59-2s against Morehead State.
Yeah, enjoyable.
Either way,
I want to see 70. I want to see someone go up top on someone 3 times and just,
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing that sort of went away across
Sounds fun.
Eastern used to say, we're not worried about any of this stuff.
Yeah.
Third down,
Doesn't
defensive
matter.
efficiencies,
Doesn't
whatever.
matter.
If we get 1 pick, we're going to beat you because we're going to be 2 possessions ahead of you.
Yeah.
Catch us. Catch us if you can.
So fun.
Let's try to score 10 touchdowns.
One of my biggest.
Here's the thing. The Grizz this year could do it.
Yeah.
They could do it if they wanted to make that what they were going to do.
They could.
It's going to be a cold day in hell when hell freezes over for Bobby Houck to want to win like that.
I don't think it'll happen.
I don't either.
Here's the thing, though, that I think is, it just seems like one of my caveats or one of my criteria for this list is you were feared.
Yes.
That when if you're a fan of a team and this team's coming to town, you're like, gosh dang it.
Yep.
we're going to lose.
Right.
Eastern does that better than anyone. That's why they have so many teams on this list.
That's exactly right. And they
Even if you're not scared of them as the intimidating physical, doesn't matter. You're just scared. You think you're going to lose.
Yeah, and ever since the last good Eastern team, the smack-talking Eric Barrier, Tallulah Lebo-Jones team, who came
like
to 21.
20.
Came to
Wow.
Barrier's last year was 21. They beat
Sophomore year here, junior year, got it.
They beat the Grizz in Cheney, but then had to come to Missoula in the playoffs. Barrier threw the ball a all-time college football record 81 times for 550-something yards, and the Grizz won 57-41.
Right. You want to have, before we go to number 3?
That's the other part. I don't mean to say that the Grizz can't score points. The Grizz have scored 50-plus all the time. They just don't score half of those points on offense.
Yeah.
Like that Eastern game, Malik Flowers had a kick return. They had multiple either punt blocks or defensive touchdowns.
Right. Yeah,
it's crazy.
Get the ball on the 18-yard line. It's like
avalanche people without actually doing that much on offense.
You want to know a real quick hot take, Colter? And this is for all of college football, but it can be specific to the FCS since we're talking about it, and that's what it may be. Can we not just fit it all in the year?
Right.
In 2018, we went to cover Eric Barrier in Frisco. It was 2019.
January of 19.
Can't we not let's just fit it in December? Let's just get it going.
Right.
Let's just play the last week. How it's always been is that it was 3 weeks of playoff, 4 weeks. You get a bye. You got to win 3 games, and then guess what? The next week you just go play the Natty. Seems like we could just all fit it in right there, right?
Treasure State University of Montana football is a way of life. Lithia Ford has long been a proud sponsor of Grizz football, and Lithia Ford of Missoula is thrilled to have several of the best Montana football seniors driving the best trucks in Montana. Aspen Sound is the premier car audio and accessory shop in Montana. Aspen Sound makes sure the boys are riding in style with tinted windows and state-of-the-art stereo systems. There's always a party in Montana. Whether you're going to a concert, a wedding, or a football game, the Montana Party Bus will get you there. Skyline Sports and ESPN MT cover the Big Sky with more depth than anyone. Check out SkylineSportsMT.com and tune in to Nuanez now on 102.9 ESPN Missoula every day. My Montana Roots and Wear Your Roots clothing is your go-to spot for the most unique and comfortable lifestyle clothing you'll find anywhere. And get your custom t-shirts to support your favorite player. From 5 local businesses who love Montana, best of luck to the Grizz as they pursue another Big Sky Conference championship. 9 out of 10. Big Sky Breakdown. SkylineSportsMT.com. Big Sky Breakdown. Proudly presented in part by Aspen Sound. Aspen Sound, not only state-of-the-art stereo installation into your vehicle, they can also get you an automatic car starter before winter rolls around, get your windows tinted so you make sure you're riding in style. AspenSound.com/Missoula. They also have a location in Coeur d'Alene, and you can also visit in Missoula on Broadway. All right, into the top 3. Number 3 team, the 2023 Montana Grizzlies. Man for man, pound for pound, I don't think this team actually stacks up with any of the teams we just named, even the honorable mention teams. But the things this team had were, 1, a couple of the best individual players who put forth a couple of the best individual performances of anybody on this list. They also had incredible depth. They had incredible good fortune with their injuries. And more than anything, and the reason they're number 3 on this list, was their ability to play as a team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Their ability to come together as a team and then play as a team. They looked like the worst Grizz team of our lifetime when they lost at Northern Arizona.
Yeah.
Then they didn't lose again. They won 10 games in a row, and so much of it was because of Alex Gubner being one of the biggest dogs we've ever covered on the interior defensive line and the way that he was able to make everybody across the board better. And part of it was because Junior Bergen is the magic man. Junior Bergen had several of the most iconic plays in the history of Grizz football and the Big Sky Conference, particularly in the playoffs. And that all amounted to then one of the great runs. This is the best run of any team we've ever covered. They fell just short. Well, they fell well short in the national championship, but they got to the Natty. But in terms of the momentum they were able to build throughout the scope of the season, there's nobody that matches the 2023 Grizzlies.
I agree with you. And the pregame, I mean, who knows about Clifton McDowell's injury in the national championship? I think it's a knee, it's an ankle, it's kind of the rolled up on. which we can confirm definitely happened, right? Can we say that happened?
Yes, that happened.
Okay. It's hard to get that kind of stuff on record, especially with Coach Hauk. Outside of that all happening, pregame of the 3 that we've covered, I thought they had the best chance.
Yes.
I thought standing on the field in Frisco with the Grizz last year against South Dakota State was like, I think that a betting man, I'd probably say they come up short, but I think they got a shot here.
Yeah.
The other 2 games, I did not think either team had a shot.
No, when we first saw North Dakota State in Frisco for the first time live and in person since that 2015 Week 0 game, but the first time in Frisco against Eastern, I was on the sidelines for about 2 hours before the game. I was actually hanging out with former head coach Bo Baldwin. We were just shooting the stuff, and I was watching Eastern's offensive line and their fullbacks warm up, and I was like, "Oh my God, Eastern's gonna die, dude!" Yeah. What? Like they do this drill where they have the first 3 offensive lines, and you're looking at the guys that are the third string, and you're like, "That's the third string offensive line." How do they do it? They have 15 guys that look bigger and better than everybody else.
Yeah.
And then you see Man Bear Pig Hunter Lepke coming through the hole.
Yeah.
I mean, he happens to start for the Dallas Cowboys now. That team was
decent running back.
That team was so stacked, man.
Yeah.
South Dakota State was stacked last year too. They had a bunch of great players.
Super stacked, but the Grizz hung in there, and like the fact that it was a game in the first half, I mean, things didn't go their way, but outside of Bergen and Gubner, you know, I mean, maybe Braxton Hill you could put on that list, but there's no all-time great Grizzlies on this team, and that to say that the team that
Eli Gilman might become one if
sure,
he
but
sticks
like just
around.
where it's at right now. Bergen is an all-time great.
Yep.
Gubner's definitely an all-time great
for sure.
Braxton Hill you could probably put in the top 15 linebackers of all time.
Yeah.
I mean, he's first team all league
For
guy
sure.
with 100+ tackles,
For sure.
and a good leader, and
For sure.
end up going. You know, he's playing in the CFL now. Like those, I think. But otherwise, a lot of good players.
Good players.
Nash Fouch is a good player. Trajan Cotton's a good player. Trevin Gradney's a good player. But they're
Corbin
not
Walker,
all-time great
good
players.
player. I agree.
Yeah, they're 82, 85s. They're not.
Yep.
They're not
Yep.
legends. And so again, the team aspect here is really important.
That's why Gubner's such an important part of this story, man.
Look at what they're doing this year without him. Oh my God.
Yes, right.
This team could play if they had him.
We love the Big Sky High School Bash brothers. Levi Janicaro and Tyler Flinker are 2 of my favorite guys. I encouraged them since they were in high school to go make this a reality, man. You can do it. You can do it. They did it, man. They did it. They were both outstanding,
monsters,
productive players. They are very limited, but they were able to just run with their hair on fire and just smash people because Gubner erased half of the guys that could possibly touch them, just resetting the formation over and over and over again.
Didn't erase it sometimes. Didn't erase it for the plays he was in, which was only 70% of the plays. 100% of the plays all the time, every play.
That's the other part. All his backups got hurt. They were playing Evan Schaefer, their starting tight end, as his backup
He just rolled.
in the middle of the season.
He played 65 snaps a game.
Which is just a crazy number for that
double
position.
teamed at the nose.
Unbelievable.
You should play 30 snaps.
Yes,
He's playing
right.
70.
Yes, right. He is an all-time great Grizz, no question.
For sure.
I mean, he's the best true nose they've ever had.
Yeah, they've
only run this. They've only run this system, but he's up there with the great D tackles.
A lot
man.
of good D tackles, man. We take time to get through it, but yeah, there's a lot of good ones.
But he's all of them.
They weren't productive. They
all came in pairs too, right? Like Hobbs had Waldhauser, and Alan Sines had
Sines was a beast.
Sines, who was the guy that played next to Sines? Johnny Verona, and they all had a pair. Like Austin Mullins had guys that play next to him, and all those guys were really good, but none of them were the Big Sky Conference Defensive Player of the Year, a unanimous first team All-American.
Right.
Gubner was the dude. And Bergen, the ability he is in the long line of outstanding returners that Bobby Hauk has had. I'm not quite ready to say that he's the best, but he's the most spectacular and he's the most magical. His sense for the moment is second to none.
He's the best.
He's the best.
His only peers are tough and Mark, and he's better.
Yeah,
he's way more. He's like the shiftiness, the get stuck in the bubble and somehow find the sideline. I mean, Mark's straightaway speed, tough too. The speed was next level, especially on kick returns. I mean, those guys are. And Mark, I mean, let's get real here.
He's one of the greatest kick returners in the NFL.
It's like A and B. I mean, at best, they're both number ones. But I think he's the greatest.
The ability to rise to the occasion.
Mark had punt returns that ended up contributing to wins. Bergen has won games.
Literally won
the game.
Yes,
on a kick in the air where 45,000 people knew he was about to house it. And then he caught it and shouldn't have housed it.
Coach Marty's call, Marty Mortelig, our great friend, his call when North Dakota State kicked it, and they know they have to kick it to the other sidelines. And as the ball's firing through the air, Marty's like, why did they kick it to him? What is North Dakota State doing? Yeah. And then Bergen gets it, and boom, 60-yard touchdown.
My favorite is when they kick away from him, and he chases it down and catches it somehow and
still gets and somehow it gets back to the other sideline.
So it's with this team, we got to mention, Colter, that the playoff run they went on was as good as it gets. We said it's the best run we ever covered.
For sure.
But the semifinal game in Missoula against North Dakota State was the best game I've ever covered. I've been on the sidelines for 10 years, close to 10 plus games, over 100 games.
Yeah.
Nothing like it.
Nothing like it. Nothing like it. It was an out-of-body experience.
Yeah.
It was totally surreal. I did not get a chance to go to the national championship game. I was expecting my baby boy, who came just days after these guys all went to Frisco. And you want to know what? The days that you guys were there leading up to it, I was so mad because I was feeling like I was missing out on this great Grizz reunion and seeing all my old college buddies and all this fun and the Grizz Fest and the nice dinners you guys were going to and all this stuff. After the game was over, I was not sad for 1 second because I realized that the last Grizz game I watched last year was the greatest Grizz game that has ever happened. And I got to see the last of it before then going and watching the coronation of a worthy champion.
Absolutely.
That did not happen to be a Big Sky Conference team and it did not happen to be
but I also
the Montana Grizzlies.
Have said, Colter, forever, this is not a knock on North Dakota State. I said it would end.
Yes.
I'm not saying it has at all.
No.
But I think that was this little glimmer into this beginning of something different.
That's correct. Only one team gets to say that they knocked North Dakota State out of the playoffs before Frisco. James Madison won in Fargo in 2016, but the North Dakota State didn't lose again for 3 years before the pandemic and then won it again after the pandemic. But only one team gets to say that they were the first ones to beat them. Mm-hmm. Only one team, and that's the Montana Grizzlies. That carries the weight. That's why this team is number 3 on this list. Big Sky Breakdown, SkylineSportsMT.com, our top 2 teams right after this.
What is a jewelry design center?
JDC is a family-owned business with deep roots in Montana. Why Montana? Because this community made us. Made us family, made us artisans, made us believe in love, made us hometown heroes. Because this community made us shine. Why Montana? Because Montana is home.
Number 2 on our top 10 list, the 2021 Montana State Bobcats. This team is number 2 because of their ability to bounce back and because of a singular coaching decision that I think changed the face of Montana State football, at least in its current iteration. I'm not going to say forever because who knows how long it will truly have ramifications. But for MSU to take Wyoming down to the wire in their opener and then go undefeated in FCS games all the way until the Brawl of the Wild against Montana, and then to get humiliated in Missoula, and then to have the gumption by Brent Vigen to bench Matt McKay, and then to go on the greatest playoff run the Bobcats have ever seen. I mean, make no mistake, winning playoff games is a new thing at Montana State. They went on the epic run in 1984 all the way to the championship. I'm talking the Division I AA era. They were awesome under Sonny Hall and won playoff games frequently. But the one run in 84, and then after that, they didn't win another playoff game until 2006. They didn't have a real playoff run until 2019 when Jeff Choate led them there. But everybody was wondering, what's going to happen without Choate? And, oh my gosh, we went to Missoula and we got destroyed. What's next? Oh my gosh, he benched our starting quarterback. What's Brent Vigen doing? Then Tommy Mellott looked like he was swimming upstream against the current in the first 3 quarters of the game against Tennessee Martin. Then Mellott put his toe on the ground and scored a 77-yard touchdown, and Montana State wins going away 26-7. And Tommy Mellott is as on fire as any player I've ever seen for the next 3 weeks. And it's really a bummer he got hurt in the national championship game. I don't think Montana State would have won, but I think they would have been a lot more competitive than 38-10. And it was just a sad way for that sort of mercurial run to end. I know a lot of people are probably screaming, how do you lose the rivalry game and get all the way up to number 2? But it's the greatest playoff run in terms of the unlikely nature of it and the story behind it The Grizz had the epic wins, the memorable wins, but they were on their home field and they had to gut it out. If they weren't at home, who knows what happens. There's only 3 wins that are even comparable to Montana State's win at Sam Houston, and I think it's the greatest road win in their program's history and perhaps their greatest FCS playoff win, period, in their program's history. That's why we have Montana State slated 2021 Bobcats as number 2 in the Skyline Sports era.
Oh, no one's ever gone on the road and beat number 1 team. Tommy Law had 4 touchdowns in the first quarter. I mean, absolutely lit it. And yeah, then goes on this amazing run that's then set up the next 3 years of Bobcat football. I mean, it definitely was a table setter. We just talked about the 2023 Montana Grizzly team. That team was a moment in time. That doesn't necessarily that team didn't translate into what now the future of their program is. It was just a one and done kind of thing. And of course they built a lot of guys that have been there for 4 or 5 years. We talked about the linebackers, but this 2021 Montana State team literally has set the foundation for a whole new generation of Bobcat football.
You also had to make that move because the world is raining down upon you.
You didn't have to. No one's making that move.
No one's making that move. But the world is raining down upon you if you're that coaching staff. You just got your winning streak against the Grizzlies snapped. The Grizz Slayer is not the head coach of the Cats anymore.
Uh-oh.
What are we going to do?
Start a freshman.
Troy Anderson just got beat down in his last Cat Grizz game. He got isolated in space against Junior Bergen and gave up the table-setting touchdown. You don't make that move, and you have toxicity at the quarterback position and in your locker room, and you fade into oblivion, and you ruin Troy Anderson's senior year, and you don't win those playoff games, you ruin your program. You ruin your program. You have nowhere to go from there. Instead, they use it to go all the way to the Natty, and then they run the table in the Big Sky the next year and win their first Big Sky title in 12 years, even after Troy Anderson had already graduated. It is one of the pivotal moments of the modern history of the Big Sky Conference to make that decision and then have it work like it did.
And tell us a little bit, Colter, about the semifinal game.
The quarterfinal game, you mean?
Quarterfinal
game. We are in Huntsville, Texas, and it was as shell-shocked as I've ever seen an opposing team. Tommy Mellott threw a touchdown, caught a touchdown, and ran in a touchdown in the first 10 minutes of the game. The Cats are up 28-0 at the end of the first quarter, and they just completely race past Sam Houston 42-19. You're talking about the number 1 team in the country and the defending national champs, and half the stadium left because they knew that it was over. Woo. They knew they had no chance. Troy Anderson's playing with one arm. You know, he's taped up like a mummy. He's making tackles one-handed because he can't use his other arm, just completely gutting through it. Isaiah Fonse is playing on battered knees, and it didn't matter, man. They had the magic. Tommy Mellott had the magic. They're running the Philly special. They're doing all these different things. And that then sets the table. I mean, the other thing is you can't understate how big time that win over South Dakota State was.
That's what, yeah.
Mark Gronowski is out. And Chris Oladokin is the quarterback, who, by the way, is still in the NFL, plays for the Chiefs. So it's not like you have some slouch as a backup. You got an NFL guy as the guy that's leading the way. But you still got Pierre Strong. You got Isaiah Davis. You got one of the best 1-2 punch the FCS has seen in the last 10 years.
On the Browns and the Jets, respectively.
You got NFL offensive linemen. You got all sorts of the Yankee twins. You got Zach Hines. This is the before South Dakota State fully came of age and made their run, but a pretty epic team. And to beat back and forth with that team and then to close them out in the second half, Daniel Hardy to have 3 second-half sacks, and then just to see the jubilation. Like last year when the Grizz won at North Dakota State, it was this unbelievable experience. And it was like it was at the same time this awesome shared moment of joy for so many people, but also this sigh of relief that, oh my gosh, they did do the right thing in hiring Bobby Houck back. The Grizz can get back. They are back to being elite. The Cats had never been there before. The Cats had always been the team that was chasing. And even though they had the win streak against the Grizz, it then didn't work out for them in the playoffs. So to be able to do it and go on the run, like we saw guys that have been a part of Bobcat football for 50 and 60 years crying like little girls. that they were so happy.
It could be like little boys.
It could be whatever you want. The tears of joy. This is a biggest compliment as you could give somebody, man, to have that level of authentic emotion attached to something because you care about it so much. I'm envious of you, but it was tremendous. And just seeing Daniel Hardy celebrating with the crowd and screaming out and Tommy Mellott, I mean, talk about out-of-body experience. The guy was completely punch drunk by the end of that South Dakota State game. 28 carries. They rode him and rode him and rode him some more, and he rides off into the sunset. That 2-game stretch, Sam Houston, South Dakota State, is one of the best 2-game stretches any player, period, has ever had in the FCS playoffs, and it got the Cats all the way to the national championship.
Quite a run, quite a team.
Number 1 on our list of top 10 teams of the last 10 years, Skyline Sports era. I know that people are going to say, how do you pick this team when they didn't go to the national championship, even though you've covered 3 teams that did? Sometimes, every once in a while, there's just a circumstance that goes against everything, and unfortunately, luck is a big part of sports. The 2016 Eastern Washington Eagles would beat every single team that we've covered. They would beat every team we've covered. Unfortunately for them, they couldn't beat Youngstown State. They lost by 2 points on their home field on an Arctic, completely miserable day in Cheney.
Yeah.
You could say, well, Eastern needs to be tougher. They need to be better. They need to be able to run the ball more. If you were to draft the worst possible weather conditions that a team like them would have to play in, that was the day that they had to play.
It's like 40-mile-an-hour winds and straight sheet ice.
And Youngstown State was coming in with a head of steam. Bo Pelini was the coach. They were not afraid to just ground and pound it. But in terms of pure talent across the roster, in terms of explosiveness offensively, and also in terms of the team that would have had the best chance to dethrone one of these Missouri Valley teams, this is it. Ironically, they lost to the upstart Missouri Valley team, not the dynasty. This is the team that could and should have beat North Dakota. They went to North Dakota State and went to overtime during the regular season earlier in this year. I know we're going sort of against the grain here. They did win the Big Sky title. They were, the outright number 2 seed, all that sort of stuff. This is the best team we've covered. This is the most talented team, and this team would beat every other team we just talked about on this list.
Yep, and what we always say about the Missouri Valley is that you're not going to, especially North Dakota State and what South Dakota State has done the last decade, you're not going to beat those teams doing what they do. So this is the kind of team.
Exactly.
This is the kind of team that's going to be able to give them the best shot. And this is what we talked earlier, Colter, about like Vernon Adams and that team. This is that team with all those receivers we named, Cooper Kupp, Shaq Hill, Kendrick Bourne, Simba Webster, all of those guys' senior year. 4 NFL receivers, multiple NFL guys on the offensive line. Gage Gudbrand's best season by far when he was absolutely lighting it. I mean, he threw for 5,700 yards and 55 touchdowns.
5,700 yards, the all-time Big Sky Conference single-season record.
And then they got Samson Ekimam on the edge, who still starts in the NFL. And then you got guys for days. I mean, we named a lot of these guys already, DBs for days, young guys that ended up being great in 2018, the team that we already talked about. There was some dogs on this team, and I agree with you. No one could keep up with this team scoring-wise, and they could play a little defense. Probably the best defensive effort from this iteration of the decade-long of Eastern Washington. Yeah, it's not going against the grain, Colter, because winning one extra game in a weird circumstance. Yeah, sure. We're not. I always tell you, we're not making these lists to tell you who the 10 Big Sky champions were and who the 3 teams that made the national championship are. And that's not the list. We can all look up who won the 10 Big Sky titles the last 10 years and the 3 teams who made it. That's not how we're ordering it. Sometimes the eye test wins, especially for us in this organization, and this is by far the best team that we covered.
I'm looking at these Eastern teams. The 2012 Eastern team that went to the semis, they lost to Sam Houston State, who was running the spread option back then. The 2013 team, they lost to Towson. Towson was led by Terrence West, the late Terrence West, who went on to play for the Baltimore Ravens for several years. A ground and pound CAA team. 2014 lost to Illinois State, Marshawn Coprich. And then 2016 they lost to Youngstown State. Bo Pelini's guys coming to Cheney. They win 40-38 on the Arctic tundra. And that's why Eastern, then we talked about that 2018 team and how much they ran the ball and how good they were at running the ball. That's why they did it.
Right here.
This is also the swan song for Bo Baldwin. He had led Eastern to Big Sky titles in 2010, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2016. He knew he had reached his peak.
Yeah.
He knew that you're never going to get Cooper Kupp, Kendrick Bourne, Shaq Hill, and Samson Ebukam again. You're never going to have that team.
Nope. Yeah, it's true.
I think that it's the only team that has a true top 10 defensive player, multiple true top 10 offensive players. I mean, Cooper's the top 5 quarterback. These are 3 of the 5 best receivers the league has ever seen, at least in the modern era.
Yeah, in the last 20 years, 15 years.
And Kupp is the best player in the history of the conference. Kupp's one of the greatest players in college football history. He will be a first ballot Hall of Famer in the College Football Hall of Fame, and he's probably going to be a Hall of Famer at the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Probably.
I mean, he's
got the greatest season for a receiver of all time.
For sure.
By a lot.
He is the what? Probably.
I said top 25.
Is he the greatest slot receiver of all time? I think it's Steve Largent, Wes Welker, and Cooper Kupp.
If you were going to start to break it down to specifics, he is a top 5 he's a top 25 receiver of all time.
He's the most apparently awesome player we've ever covered too, right? Like, it was so obvious the first day you ever saw him.
And I love Troy. We always talk about Troy. People push back on Troy if you don't know Troy. Cooper Kupp is the king of this conference by more than any other stat you could attribute.
Troy Anderson has the most incredibly unique story.
You got to know the story.
Paul Bunyan playing all these different positions, small town Montana, et cetera, et cetera.
There was half of his time playing football where you said, man, if he ever figures it out.
Cooper
Kupp has it as a first ballot Hall of Famer from the second you ever saw him.
The very first time we covered Cooper Kupp in 2013 at Montana, he had 14 catches for 178 yards and 3 touchdowns. And I told you, I was like, that was when we were just first starting even thinking about covering the whole Big Sky. I said, we got to do a story on that guy. If you go click through the Skyline Sports archives, I believe we wrote 35 pieces about Cooper Kupp. I take enormous pride in saying that we were the news outlet that covered Cooper Kupp's career the most in depth. His father sent us a thank you note after the senior profile that we wrote on him his senior year, and it's just really too bad that it ended the way that it did. But I think that team, coulda, shoulda, woulda. The circumstances go a different way, whatever. That team's the best team we've covered. They have the arguably best coach. They have absolutely the best player. They have the best supporting cast around him. And if you were to play neutral field, head-to-head, all these different teams, I think that team beats every single one of these teams the majority of the time.
Yeah, man. I mean, even if he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer, I think Cooper Kupp's toeing that line, especially if he gets in there 2 or 3 years. And I mean, his 2021 season in the NFL there's nothing like it, man. There's nothing that doesn't touch. I mean, 1,947 yards is the most, second most all time, 16 touchdowns. It's the highest, 145 catches. I mean, we're not talking about the NFL here. We're talking about this team. But he's better in college. He's one of the greatest college football players of all time.
No doubt. Skyline Sports, our 10th anniversary, Skyline at 10. Happy anniversary to us. Thanks so much for hanging out. Thanks to Up Top Clothing, Cash One Pawn, and Town Pup for presenting our Skyline at 10. And thanks so much to you guys for listening in. For Brooks Nuanez, I'm Colter Nuanez. We'll be back with our top 10 players of the last 10 years. I bet you one of the guys.
Number one?
I bet you we just talked about a couple of them. We'll do that probably next week to get October kicked off. But thanks so much for being here. Skyline Sports every day, every season. Please visit SkylineSportsMT.com.
Join Town Pump's Pump It Up Rewards Plus program and never pay full price for fuel again.
Save 5 cents on every gallon every day at any town pump across Montana.
Plus, earn and redeem points on your favorite in-store items to get free stuff with our clubs.
Stop in and pick up a rewards card. Download the Pump It Up Rewards Plus app today.
Or visit townpump.com/rewards to register and start saving.
Town Pump. Right down the